Burn our colonies, and your alien worlds will turn to ash and cinders. Earth Defense Force Captain Harry Richardson spat back at the sneering blue face of the Andorian Supreme Commander filling his viewport. Sirius, the alien leader, had just delivered humanity a ruthless ultimatum. Abandon the star systems Earth had colonized, or face total war with the mighty Andorian Empire. He claimed humanity's expansion into Andorian sovereign territory would no longer be tolerated. Richardson countered that the worlds were uninhabited, and Earth had followed galactic law in settling them, but Sirius merely scoffed. To him, Earth's growing power was a threat that needed to be put in check. Richardson slammed his fist on the control panel as the transmission went dark, the alien's mocking laughter still echoing in his ears. He immediately put out an alert to Earth Central Command, knowing the crisis would require the highest level response. The Earth Senate convened an emergency session to determine the fate of millions of human colonists. The disputed systems contained critical hyperspace lanes and resource-rich planets that the colonies depended on. Some senators urged diplomacy, not wanting to rush into a devastating conflict, but others argued retreat would only invite more Andorian land grabs. With famine and economic ruin threatening the colonies if those systems were lost, the president decided appeasement was not an option. Humanity would not be cowed. Richardson relayed Earth's final warning to the Andorians. Any attack on human worlds would mean all-out war. The Andorian fleets had one chance to back down, or else humanity would unleash its terrible wrath and burn their worlds to ashes. Earth would rather see the galaxy in flames than kneel to alien tyrants. The Andorian answer came swiftly and brutally. Frantic distress calls suddenly cut out as human outposts along the border went dark. Long-range scans showed an immense enemy armada jumping into human space, making straight for the major colony worlds. The die had been cast. The Andorians had chosen war. Gritting his teeth, Richardson watched the tactical holomap in grim silence as angry red icons swarmed across human territory. He understood the scope of the threat Earth faced. The Andorians were one of the most powerful star nations. Their warships numbered in the tens of thousands. It would take every ounce of humanity's strength and cunning to hold the line against their onslaught. But Richardson had no doubt Earth would prevail. What the Andorians failed to grasp was the depths of human resolve. Humanity would fight to the last breath to defend its worlds. There would be no retreat, no quarter, no mercy. This would be a war to the bitter end. And when the guns fell silent, only one species would remain standing. Whatever the cost, Richardson vowed, it would be humanity. Richardson's face hardened as he scanned the tactical displays on the Indomitable's cracked view screens. The Andorian invasion force stretched across the system, an immense swarm of warships and troop transports that seemed to blacken the stars themselves. But the battered Fifth Fleet couldn't hesitate now. Billions of human lives hung in the balance. They had to buy time for Earth to marshal its strength, regardless of the cost. "Plot intercept course for the enemy's flanks," Richardson barked to his helmsman. "We hit them hard and fast, then pull back. Don't let them pin us down." The ragged human ships leapt forward, mass drives flaring. They dove into the onrushing Andorian formations like wolves among sheep, lasers and missiles ripping into the alien hulls at point-blank range. Sirius's ships reeled under the unexpected savagery of the attack. Richardson gripped his command chair as the Indomitable shuddered under a storm of return fire. Damage reports flooded in, but he pushed the pain of his own wounds aside. His crew needed him clear-headed and in control. On the bridge holo display, he watched the Fifth Fleet ships dart and weave through the enemy lines, pounding the Andorians again and again. The aliens began to give ground, their rigid formations fracturing. Sirius slammed a fist onto the arm of his command throne as he saw his grand invasion begin to unravel. The humans were like phantoms, striking without warning and refusing to give battle on his terms. These kinds of reaving attacks weren't supposed to be possible. This wasn't how honorable warfare was waged. "Pursue and destroy them," he screamed to his subordinates. "I want their broken hulks drifting before me. Redeem your honor." The Andorian ships wheeled about, racing to engage the Fifth Fleet. But Richardson had already judged he'd bought enough time. Now it was time to run, to preserve his forces for the battles still to come. All ships, fall back by squadrons to the new Saratoga colony, he ordered over the fleet comm. Fighting withdrawal, pattern Theta. Don't let them overwhelm us. The Fifth Fleet broke off, racing back to the human lines under punishing fire. The Indomitable's hull rang with impact after impact, and alarms shrieked across the bridge as the ship's armor buckled. But still, they flew on, the fleet holding together through sheer stubborn discipline. In the light of New Saratoga's twin moons, the remnants of the Fifth Fleet hurtled into high orbit over the colony. Below, the once verdant surface was now a vista of ash and molten rock. The Andorian bombardment had scourged it clean of life. Only the planetary defense batteries still hurled defiance at the invaders. Richardson refused to let the crew see him slump in his command chair. Exhaustion dragged at him and blood soaked his shredded uniform from a dozen wounds. They were just a battered few now against an empire's might. Every instinct screamed to flee. But he had his duty. This system was the gateway to the human core worlds. It could not fall, no matter the price. Even if he had to trade the Fifth Fleet's lives to the last soul, they had to hold here. They had to make the Andorians bleed for every burnt inch of soil. Bring us into geosynchronous position above the capital. Link fire control with the defense grid, he rasped through cracked lips. Prepare to repel. The words died as the sensor officer cried out in alarm. New contacts at the system's edge. Reading, multiple capital ship signatures. Their transponder codes. They're ours. Relief and dread warred within Richardson as he hauled himself back to the tactical display. The battered hollow image showed new human ships, dozens of them, pouring into the system at flank speed. Earth's main battle fleets had finally arrived, and they were heading straight into Sirius jaws. The Andorian commander's smile was a death's head grin of triumph as he watched the human reinforcements emerge from hyperspace. The primitives had swarmed to defend their colony, just as he planned. Now his fleet would crush them wholesale. All ships reform battle line, Sirius called out. Concentrate on the new arrivals. Destroy them before they can join the defenders. He laughed, cold and pitiless, as his armada swung their prows towards the oncoming human vessels. The primitives had fallen into his trap. There would be no escape for them this time. The void around New Saratoga erupted with flashes of weapons fire as Earth's main battle fleets poured into the system. Admiral Michael Carver's flagship, the EFS Dauntless, led the charge, its massive particle cannons unleashing streams of superheated plasma at the Andorian positions on the colony's surface. All ships, concentrate fire on those orbital defense platforms, Carver barked into the fleet-wide comm. Clear a path for our landers. The human warships spread out in attack formation, their guns blazing. Andorian ships scrambled to intercept, but found themselves suddenly outnumbered and outgunned. On the bridge of his command ship, Sirius stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. How is this possible? He snarled at his intelligence officer. You assured me the humans would take weeks to muster a response force. My lord, I don't understand, the officer stammered. Our projections are worthless, Sirius roared, backhanding the hapless Andorian. He turned to his fleet commanders. All ships, form a defensive perimeter. We must hold this system at all costs. But even as the Andorian fleet moved to comply, the first wave of human assault landers was already burning through the atmosphere, escorted by swarms of fighters. Aboard the battered Indomitable, Captain Richardson watched the reinforcements arrive with a mix of relief and frustration. His ship limped towards the incoming repair vessels, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. A medical team met him on the bridge. Sir, you need immediate evac, the chief medic said, eyeing Richardson's numerous injuries. Like hell, Richardson growled, struggling to stay on his feet. My place is here with my crew. But his protests fell on deaf ears as the medics firmly guided him to a waiting shuttle. As they lifted off, Richardson caught a final glimpse of his beloved ship through the viewports. He clenched his fists in impotent rage, furious at being sidelined just as the tide of battle turned. On the scorched surface of New Saratoga, vicious firefights erupted as human troops poured from their landers to reinforce the beleaguered defenders. The Andorians fought with savage intensity, their gene-enhanced warriors tearing through human units with inhuman strength and speed. Private Sarah Chen crouched behind a shattered wall, plasma bolts sizzling overhead. Her squad had been pinned down for hours by an Andorian sniper team. "Jackson, see if you can flank left," she shouted to her squadmate. "I'll draw their fire." Chen popped up, spraying suppressing fire from her assault rifle. An Andorian round grazed her helmet, but she kept firing as Jackson scrambled through the rubble. Moments later, a series of explosions signaled the end of the alien snipers. Similar brutal exchanges played out across the ruined cityscape as both sides battled for control. But slowly, inevitably, superior human numbers and firepower began to tell. After days of grueling combat, the last pockets of Andorian resistance were finally crushed. But even as human troops raised the Earth flag over New Saratoga's shattered capital, a new threat loomed. High above, Sirius tightened his blockade of the system, choking off all approach and escape vectors. His losses had been grievous, but he still commanded a formidable armada. In the makeshift war room on New Saratoga, Admiral Carver pored over tactical projections with his staff. The numbers were grim. With supply lines cut, they faced either a suicidal breakout attempt or a prolonged siege that would cost countless lives. "We need a bold stroke," Captain Richardson insisted from his hospital bed, connected via hololink. "Hit Sirius hard, scatter his fleet, then take the fight straight to the Andorian home systems. It's the last thing they'll expect." Carver rubbed his temples. "It's insanely risky. If it fails, we lose everything. And if we do nothing, we're trapped here until we starve or the Andorians regroup," Richardson countered. "Sir, this is our chance to show these aliens what happens when they back humanity into a corner." For long moments, Carver stared at the star chart, weighing their dwindling options. Finally, he nodded, his expression hardening with perseverance. "Very well. We go on the offensive. God help us all." Admiral Carver's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain Richardson, you're clear to engage. Give 'em hell." Richardson nodded grimly. "Understood, sir. Indomitable out." He turned to his bridge crew. "All hands, battle stations, prepare for attack run." The repaired Indomitable surged forward, leading the human strike force into the heart of the Andorian blockade. Richardson watched the tactical display as his ship spread out in attack formation. "Launch fighters," he ordered. "Have them hit the enemy's flanks while we punch through the center." Waves of human fighters streaked from their carriers, unleashing a storm of missiles. Explosions blossomed across the Andorian lines as the nimble craft darted through curtains of defensive fire. On the Andorian flagship, Sirius raged at his subordinates. "How are they breaching our formation? Destroy those human vermin." But the relentless human assault gave the Andorians no time to regroup. Richardson's ships struck like lightning, crippling several Andorian capital ships before vanishing back into the chaos of battle. "Sir, multiple enemy vessels disabled," Richardson's tactical officer reported. "Their fleet cohesion is breaking down." "Press the attack," Richardson said. "Don't let up." The Indomitable shuddered as it traded broadsides with Sirius's flagship. Richardson gripped his chair as the deck bucked beneath him. "Concentrate all fire on their command ship," he called out. "Let's end this." The Indomitable's mass drivers spoke, their hypervelocity rounds tearing huge chunks from the Andorian vessel. Fires raged across its hull as systems failed. A final salvo crippled Sirius' ship, but as it died, it lashed out one last time. "Incoming!" Richardson's sensor officer shouted. "Massive torpedo barrage, targeting New Saratoga." In that split second, Richardson made his choice. "Helm, put us between those torpedoes and the planet. Divert all power to forward shields." The Indomitable's engines flared as it raced to intercept. It slammed to a stop, directly in the path of the Andorian salvo. Richardson watched the torpedoes streak closer on the display. "Brace for impact!" The shields flared brilliantly as they absorbed the full force of the barrage. Consoles exploded across the bridge. Richardson was thrown from his chair as the ship bucked violently. When the firestorm cleared, the Indomitable drifted, scorched and battered. But it had done its job. New Saratoga was safe. With their flagship destroyed, the remaining Andorian ships fled in disarray. The siege was broken. Admiral Carver's face appeared on the main view screen. "Outstanding work, Captain. You've given us the breakthrough we needed." Richardson nodded wearily. "Thank you, sir. What are your orders?" "Regroup and resupply," Carver said. "Then we take the fight to the Andorians. It's time to make good on our promise." "Understood," Richardson replied. He turned to his battered but determined crew. "You heard the Admiral. Let's finish this fight." The Indomitable's engines glowed to life as it set course to pursue the fleeing Andorians. The real battle was just beginning. The Indomitable's engines flared as it led the battered remnants of the Fifth Fleet deeper into Andorian space. Captain Richardson stood on the bridge, his face a mask of cold fury. The view screens showed the lush green world of Thraxis Prime growing larger. "Weapons, ready all orbital bombardment systems," Richardson ordered, his voice flat and emotionless. "Target major population centers and military installations." "Sir," his XO hesitated. "What about civilian evacuation?" Richardson's eyes flickered with a hint of something, regret perhaps, before hardening again. "No evacuations. We gave them their chance." The fleet spread out, encircling the planet. Richardson watched impassively as the first salvo of kinetic strikes streaked towards the surface. Brilliant flashes erupted across the planet as city after city vanished in atomic fire. On the ground, panicked Andorians fled through burning streets. Buildings toppled, crushing those too slow to escape. The lucky ones made it to shelters. The rest were vaporized or buried in rubble. Days later, Richardson led the ground assault personally. His boots crunched on radioactive ash as he surveyed the ruins of what had once been Thraxis Prime's capital. The few surviving Andorians cowered before the advancing human troops. "Round them up," Richardson ordered. "Set up labor camps. They'll rebuild what they destroyed, for us." Weeks passed. Richardson stood in his makeshift command center studying reports from across Andorian space. Their once mighty empire was collapsing into chaos. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," his communications officer reported. It's from the Andorian High Command. They're requesting a ceasefire." Richardson's lips curled in a cold smile. "No reply. Prepare the fleet. We're not done yet." The human armada surged onward, world after world falling before their relentless advance. Ancient Andorian cities, the pride of their civilization for millennia, crumbled under savage bombardments. On Andor itself, the Andorian homeworld, Richardson watched from orbit as atmosphere-igniting weapons turned continents into seas of fire. The planet's crust buckled and cracked under the onslaught. "It's done," he said softly, more to himself than his crew. "They'll never threaten us again." As the fleet began its long journey home, Richardson retreated to his quarters. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, barely recognizing the hard-eyed man who stared back. "What have we become?" he whispered.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.